A customer walks into the dealership looking at a used 4Runner. Nice person, did some research, knows what they want. My manager walks over with a clipboard, smiles, and asks what sounds like the most harmless question in the world. "So what are you driving now?" The customer answers. And right there, before they even sat down in the office, they just cost themselves about $3,000. I sold cars for Toyota for 20 years, spent most of that time on the floor, the last 6 running deals at the desk. And I'm telling you right now, there are 5 questions dealers ask that sound like small talk, sound like paperwork, sound like they're just trying to help you, but every single one of them is a trap. You answer them honestly. You're handing over information we used to structurally dismantle your negotiating position before you even knew you were negotiating. I'm done with that world. I don't miss it. And the reason I'm doing this, the reason I'm breaking down every move, every line, every psychological lever we used, is because somebody should have told me this stuff before I bought my first car. Nobody did. I got worked. And then I became the guy doing the working. I don't want that for you. Here's the thing about car sales that nobody tells you. The deal doesn't start when you sit down to talk numbers. It starts the moment you walk through the door. Everything before that handshake, before that test drive, before you ever see a piece of paper. That's all intelligence gathering. We're building a file on you in real time. What you can afford, what you'll accept, how desperate you are, how much we can push. And these 5 questions, they're the foundation of that file. I worked with guys who could size up a customer in 90 seconds just based on how they answered 2 of these. I watched managers pull an extra $4,000 out of a deal because someone gave up one piece of information they thought didn't matter. And the worst part? Most people think they're being polite. They think they're helping move things along. They don't realize they just showed their hand. You're about to learn what I learned after 2 decades of running this play on people who trusted me. And yeah, I probably shouldn't be telling you this, but somebody has to. First question, what are you driving now? Or what do you have for a trade? Sounds innocent, sounds like logistics. It's not. The second you point to your car in the parking lot or tell us what you're driving, we start calculating your payoff and your equity position before you've even test-driven anything. If you've got an older vehicle with no loan, we know you've got cash flow room. We can bump the payment. If you've got a newer car with a loan, we're already pulling your equity position in our heads, figuring out if you're upside down, figuring out how to bury negative equity into the new deal without you noticing. Here's how it works. Let's say you tell me you're driving a 6-year-old Camry, paid off. I know that car. I know what we'd give you at auction, what we'd retail it for if it's clean, and I know you've been driving payment-free for a while, which means you're used to not having a car payment, which means you're going to be sensitive to monthly cost. So now I'm not selling you on price. I'm selling you on payment. I'm stretching the term to 72 months so the number looks smaller. You just told me how to sell you, and you thought you were answering a simple question about what's parked outside, or maybe you're trading in something newer and you still owe on it. You tell me it's a Tacoma, 3 years old. I don't even need to run numbers yet. I already know the payoff's probably higher than the truck's worth in this market if you bought at the peak. I know you're possibly buried, and now I know I can build a deal that feels like a rescue. Hey, we'll take care of that negative equity. Don't worry about it. We'll just roll it into the new loan. You'll think I'm helping. I'm not. I'm compounding your loss and hiding it in an 84-month term you'll be paying interest on for 7 years. The right move? Don't answer. If they ask what you're driving, you say, I'm not sure if I'm trading yet. I'm just looking at this one first. If they push, you say, I'll figure out the trade part after I decide if I even want this car. You're not being rude. You're keeping your leverage, because the moment they know what you're trading, they've got half the deal built in their head, and it's built in their favor. Second question, what kind of monthly payment are you looking for? This one's the killer. This is the question that makes us the most money, and it's the one people answer the fastest. Because it sounds reasonable, right? They're just trying to figure out your budget. They want to help you find something you can afford. Except that's not what they're asking. What they're really asking is, what's the maximum amount of money we can extract from you every month for the longest possible time? Here's what happens when you give them a number. Let's say you tell me you're looking to stay around $500 a month. I don't hear 500. I hear 500 is the ceiling, which means I can structure a deal at $499 and you'll feel like you won. But more importantly, I now control the entire deal. I'm not talking about price anymore. I'm not talking about interest rate. I'm not even talking about term. I'm reverse engineering a payment, and I can hit your number a dozen different ways. And every single one of them makes us more money than if you just negotiated the price of the car. I can hit $500 a month by selling you the car at sticker and stretching you to 72 months. I can hit it by discounting the car $2,000 and stretching you to 84 months. I can hit it by keeping the rate high, burying dealer add-ons, overvaluing your trade on paper and undervaluing it on the back end. It doesn't matter. You gave me a target, and now I'm building around it. You think you're controlling the deal because I hit your number. You're not. I'm controlling everything else. And here's the part that still bothers me. We'd do this to people who couldn't afford it. Someone would come in and say they needed to stay under $400 a month, and we'd make it work. By pushing the term so long, they'd still be paying off a Corolla when it had 170,000 miles on it. We'd push the rate up half a point because they wouldn't notice in a payment structure. We'd pack the deal with gap insurance and extended warranties they didn't ask for because it only added $19 a month and they wouldn't fight it. Legal? Absolutely. Ethical? I'll let you decide. If they ask you about monthly payment, you say this: I don't shop by payment. I'll figure that out once we agree on a price. If they push back and say they just need a rough idea, you say, I'm more focused on the total cost right now. You're cutting off the game before it starts, because the second you say a number, they're not negotiating with you anymore. They're engineering around you. Third question, are you paying cash or are you financing? This one's subtle, but it's a setup. And the reason it works is because people think the answer doesn't matter. Or worse, they think saying cash gives them power. It doesn't. It does the opposite. If you say you're paying cash, we know you're not using our financing, which means we're losing back-end profit from the lender kickback. So now we're less motivated to discount the car. You just removed one of our profit centers, which means we're going to protect the others. The price isn't coming down as much. The trade value isn't going up. You thought cash was leverage. In our world, it's a flag that you're not a full profit deal, and we adjust accordingly. If you say you're financing, we start building the loan structure before we even talk price. We're thinking about rate markup, we're thinking about the F&I office, we're thinking about back-end products. And if you say you're pre-approved through your bank or credit union, we know we've got to beat that rate to keep you in our financing. Or we've got to convince you our rate's close enough that the convenience is worth it, and then we make it up somewhere else. Either way, you just told us how you're buying before we told you what you're buying. That's backwards. The right answer is no answer. If they ask how you're planning to pay, you say, I haven't decided yet. I'm focused on the car first. If they say they need to know for the paperwork, you say, we can figure that out once we agree on the numbers. You're not lying. You're just refusing to play a game where the rules are rigged. Fourth question, what's your credit score? Or, have you checked your credit recently? They'll frame this one as helpful. Just want to make sure we get you the best rate. Or, we can pre-qualify you right now so you know what you're approved for. Sounds like they're doing you a favor. They're not. They're determining how hard they can push you. If you tell them your score is 750, they know you'll qualify for top-tier rates. But they also know you're probably confident, probably did research, probably won't accept a garbage deal. You're a tougher negotiation. If you tell them your score is 620, they know you're subprime, which means you're worried about approval, which means you're grateful for any deal that gets done. And that gratitude is expensive. We'd mark up subprime rates 2 points over what the bank approved because we knew the customer was just relieved to get financed. They wouldn't question it. But here's the worst part. If you say you don't know your score, we know you're flying blind. And that's the easiest customer to work. We'd send them to F&I. Tell them their score came back lower than expected. Tell them the rate's higher than we thought, but we can still make it work. And they'd just nod and sign because they didn't know any better. You don't owe them your credit score. You don't owe them a credit pull until you've agreed on a price and you've decided to finance with them. If they ask, you say, I'm not discussing financing until we settle on the car and the price. If they say they can't build a deal without running credit, you say, then build the deal assuming I'm paying cash and we'll talk about financing after. You're not being difficult. You're keeping control of information that they'll use against you. Fifth question. When are you looking to buy? Or is this something you're doing today? This is the urgency test. They want to know if you're a real buyer or if you're just kicking tires, and the way you answer determines how aggressive they're going to be. If you say today, or this week, or anything that sounds like a short timeline, they know you're motivated, which means they don't have to discount as much. You've got urgency, so they've got leverage. They'll push you harder, they'll hold the price higher, and they'll manufacture reasons why the deal needs to close right now. This one's been on the lot 3 days. We've got 2 other people looking at it, which is almost always a lie. But it works because you already said you're ready to buy. If you say you're just looking or you're a few weeks out, they'll either write you off or they'll try to create urgency with fake scarcity. Either way, you just gave them a read on your position. The only correct answer is vague. If they ask when you're looking to buy, you say, "When I find the right deal." If they ask if you're buying today, you say, "If the numbers make sense, maybe, but I'm not in a rush." You're not saying no. You're not saying yes. You're staying in the gray area where they can't box you in. Here's the thing about all 5 of these questions. They don't sound like questions. They sound like conversation. And that's the point. We're trained to make information extraction feel natural, to make you feel like you're helping us help you. But every answer you give is a data point we use to structure a deal that benefits the dealership, not you. I ran deals for 6 years where I knew the customer's payment ceiling, their trade situation, their credit tier, and their timeline before they ever sat down in my office. And once I had that, I could build a deal that felt fair, felt reasonable, felt like a win, but was really just the maximum amount of profit we could pull out of someone who'd already told us everything we needed to know. You want to know the sentence that shuts all of this down? It's simpler than you think. When they start asking these questions, and they will because it's muscle memory for every salesperson on the floor, you say this: "I appreciate the questions, but I'm just here to look at the car and talk about the price. Everything else we can figure out after." They'll push back. They'll say they're just trying to build a worksheet, just trying to save you time, just trying to see what programs you qualify for. And you repeat it. "I understand, but I'd rather start with the car and the price. We can talk about the rest once we're there." They'll try again. They'll say they can't give you a real number without knowing your trade, your payment range, your credit. And here's what you say: "If you can't give me a price on the car without knowing how I'm paying for it, then I don't think we're going to get very far here. I'm happy to talk about all of that after we agree on what this car actually costs." Most salespeople will back off at that point because they know you're not a standard customer. You've just signaled that you understand the game. And the ones who don't back off, you walk. Because a dealership that won't talk price without extracting your financial profile first is a dealership that's already decided to maximize profit over fairness, and you're not winning that fight. I probably sound cynical. Maybe I am. But I spent 20 years watching good people get worked over because they thought being honest and polite was the same thing as being smart. It's not. Dealerships aren't your friend. Salespeople aren't your advocate. We worked for the store, and the store worked for gross profit. And every question we asked was designed to put us in position to extract the maximum amount of money from you in the minimum amount of time. I'm out of that world now. I don't miss it. And the reason I'm doing this, the reason I'm breaking down every move, every line, every psychological lever we used, is because somebody should have told me this stuff before I bought my first car. Nobody did. I got worked, and then I became the guy doing the working. I don't want that for you. So now you know. 5 questions, 5 traps, and 1 sentence that keeps you out of all of them. Watch the next video if you want more insider tips.